Well, first of all, thank you all very much for taking some time to visit with me at the end of a very long day. I'm sure the first day of ProMat for you, and just like us, is a long day. I want to spend a little bit of time this afternoon, and once again, I appreciate you coming at 4:15 in the afternoon, but I want to talk a little bit about some agnostic thinking that we have about material handling, automation, factory automation, etc. So our discussion today is about humanizing automation with innovation, system integration, the key to speed, efficiency, and lower cost. A lot of words, a lot of things to talk about, but we'd like very much to kind of delve into some areas. Now, today, once again, I want to try to keep this conversation as agnostic as we can. We're not here to support a specific product or a product line or anything else like that. I'll put my hand over my shirt all day if you like. But really what we want to try to talk about is what we see as some of the trends and some of the directions that the material handling market is going. We tried to do some research and pull up some ideas specifically about what this market is doing. So one of the first things that I want to do is pay a little bit of tribute to a guy I've done a lot of research on, Eli Whitney. If you're familiar with Eli Whitney at all, Eli Whitney was kind of the founding father, if you will, of plant automation and innovation as we know it. For his time, he was born in 1765. So automation as we know it was well before the ones and zero environment we live in today. Eli Whitney was a founding father of what we see today as plant automation and integration that we have. What was really interesting about Eli Whitney was his family, including his mother, never really wanted him to be an engineer, never really wanted him to do anything or go to college. So he was over 30 years old before he went to college. He went to Yale. He died very, very young, only 55, but during that time, in my opinion, Eli Whitney was the genesis of what we see today from an automations perspective. So as the person indicated, my name is Scott Matlock. I'm the general manager of the Logistics and Automation Division. We're stationed in Charlotte, North Carolina. We also have offices in Salt Lake and in Reno and kind of throughout the rest of the country. All of our business functions from our company is designed, built, supplied, supported, serviced out of Charlotte. So there's 5 separate departments that are here to service you and to help you with items. These are the departments. I got to get used to the 2 things here. We also have, as you can see here, the performance marketing team that helps us to understand things like this, about how we're going to best support MHI and the shows that we come to. So very, very important for us to understand what's up in the market and the market segments as well. Now, as far as me concerned, I'm an avid classic car builder. I build classic cars. I love building classic cars. I grew up on a farm in Central Washington and was always kind of building something and modifying something and doing something. So after college and other things in the military, I started my second childhood and started building classic cars. So I think people can still play with cars when they get a little bit older, and this is what I do. So if you aspire to the technology of 18436 572, then you and I talk the same language when it comes to classic car building. So really enough about me. What I really kind of want to talk about today is about 6 separate specific genres and ideas. We kind of want to talk a little bit about what the market is like, from a material handling perspective. What do we see as the market today? Where we think the market's going to go in the future? What specifically is a material handling system? I'm sure that everybody that's here that have been to the show today, you probably had enough of what a material handling system is. We'll spend just a minute with that. What do we see the current business trends? From a business standpoint, I look at things particularly from a business perspective and certainly how we can cover our customers, but I also look at what's the short-term and the long-term effects from a business perspective. Some of the current solutions that are in the market today, maybe a little bit of a review on a couple of solutions, and then probably more importantly from this discussion today that I can help walk away from today is as we sit down and talk to people about this large capital expenditure that we have, maybe we can talk a little bit about ROI. How do we approach people from an ROI perspective? What do we do to help them understand what's the best return on investment that we can have, and kind of go from there. So a material handling system, hang on, let me back up one here. So as we see the material handling systems, what the growth is in the material handling systems as we see them today. As you can see here in 21, about $2.6 billion in the market. In 22, about 216, it's pretty flat. We pretty much see that from a business perspective. We don't start seeing the market kind of really increase and grow until later on. We see in 2019, probably around 300 billion. All of this is really important data, just from a market size perspective, but really it's more about what's in the market. What can we sell? What can we help people grow with? The market size is important globally, but probably more important is what our solutions are. And certainly a CAGR that we have in the system, that kind of outlines what the growth rate is year over year. Very good and important for economists. Doesn't really help us to structure and put together a system. So if we talk about the first basic thing about what is a material handling system. In essence, a material handling system automates the movement, the storage, and the retrieval of product. That's, if we break it down to the most simplest of terms, that's exactly what it does. Automates system, puts it away, receives it, puts it back out, either in a random mode or in a very sequenced mode. The other part of it is that from an inventory perspective, which I think is another extremely large point for selling, is it helps us understand, the customer understand where their inventory is. They can track inventory, they can understand what's turning, what's not turning, what's exactly in the inventory system, and it's a very cost efficient and a very, very fast system. So in essence, that's really what a material handling system is. Anytime that we can offer a random storage and a sequence output, it cuts costs and lower overhead expenses. So the overall business direction, now we kind of understand what a material handling system is. The overall business system and the direction from the market, as we know, 2023 has been and probably will continue to be a little bit of a flat market. I don't see it really growing a whole lot. I don't really see the economy rebounding. If you talk to economists, if you read any of the economy magazines, they're talking about pretty flat until the end of the third quarter of this calendar year, fourth quarter, et cetera, and the market maybe will start to rebound. Certainly, as we know, there's some issues next year. We have the election. But everything that I've read and everything I've studied shows that there's probably some rebound coming into the next fiscal year. So I think the slippage that we're seeing in this year and the little bit of slowness, based on our evaluation and based on the market data, I think that will turn around. We also see that the end users, probably even though the economy is a little bit weak, our evaluation is the end users are starting to understand today what they need to do for a year and a half or 2 years from now. They're starting to look at what kind of solutions that they can install and incorporate into their system to allow them to grow and be competitive, and maintain their cost, cut down their expansion cost, look at ways to automate their systems so that they can become much more competitive from an overall pricing perspective. We think that capital funds can be found and can be acquired if the right amount of research and the right amount of return on investment is put together. So One of the overall trends today is the end users are realizing that they have to move forward today. If you sit and talk with a CEO or CFO or somebody that's a decision maker with an organization, our trend that we're seeing is that these folks are looking for what can we do next year and the year after. They know that these systems are extremely expensive. They know that it takes some time to get them built and get them put into place. But I think they're willing to spend the money when they can understand what what the return on investment may be. Companies are investing in planning storage capacities. The biggest issue right now, frankly, is with some kind of a material handling system that's automated. We can show a significant increase in usable space in their warehouse. They don't have to expand, they don't have to grow. They can do a lot of internal things that will create a much more usable space for them in their warehouse. So storage issues are a significant issue as we see. Certainly footprints, as I was talking about, smaller overhead storage areas. Footprint is critical to ROI analysis. As we sit down and we talk to an end user about what the reason they would want to spend some capital expenditure is, it cuts down the opportunity for them to have to expand. It cuts down the opportunity for them to have to add more people to their system. Their footprint can be much smaller. With the available space they have, they don't have to add additional resources or additional space. Additionally, adding a system, even though it's a smaller footprint, it's the overhead cost issues. And we'll spend a little bit more time with that, but overhead cost, as we all know, from the end user perspective, is probably one of the more paramount issues that they look at. If we can spend whatever the system costs, but we can show a reduction in overhead costs and a redistribution of some of those resources, it becomes a win-win situation. So storage space and overhead costs are two of the significant factors that we need to look at. So inventory management, as we understand now with a modern system that's put in place today, we can have instantaneous understanding of what's going on with our inventory. As soon as the system, as soon as the box or the case or the pallet comes into the system, the end user and the procurement team and the people that run the inventory will understand exactly what's in their inventory, how they're going to use it, what kind of turns they'll have on it. Do we have stagnant inventory? Do we have inventory that is moving faster than we can keep it loaded? So with a modern material handling system today, it gives the opportunity for the company to make some very, very interesting and very prudent inventory and cost expense decisions. So, as we see these systems becoming implemented and we see these systems becoming more used, the ability for inventory management and what needs to be done with that is a huge cost savings for an organization as well. Additionally, with inventory management understanding is the just-in-time capability. A lot of companies that build products and build services are looking for a just-in-time answer to their solution. They're looking for something that we can get goods to person or goods to inventory in a timely fashion. So the just-in-time solution is another huge aspect that we can offer from a material handling system upgrade. The globalization, as we know, a lot of companies have organizations throughout the globe, throughout the country, whatever. With the globalization of the inventory with a modern material handling system, this offers the opportunity for a company to make logistic decisions. If we have an inventory in one part of the country, and we have an inventory in another part of the country, and we have a customer that maybe is someplace in between, we can make an informed and intelligent decision based on shipping, based on availability for that inventory management. They can also modify the inventory globally. I mean, we may have somebody overseas or internationally that maybe can have a utilization or a particular usage for that piece of inventory, where they can also figure out how to manage that. The new modern material handling systems cut down on errors, they cut down on costly mistakes, gives the end user an opportunity to evaluate what they have in inventory. I talk about all that. Faster order fulfillment, I think this is one of the cornerstones to a modern material handling system today, is in a legacy system where we have a troop of people with a clipboard full of information to go out and pull an order. We're talking sometimes days, sometimes several days, to actually go out and fulfill an order and bring it to an outbound location. With a modern material system today, this can be done literally in minutes. We can evaluate where the inventory is, we can pull the inventory out of the storage system, and we can deliver it in a much timely and much cost-effective method versus the legacy systems we have in place today. So, additionally in the market today, and I'm sure everybody here understands and knows that we're moving more towards e-fulfillment and micro-systems, micro-fulfillment systems, goods-to-person technology. Once again, in our legacy systems that we've all been associated with in the past, this capability was dramatically limited. We didn't really have the opportunity, except for some significant labor issues, to be able to pull an inventory, break the inventory down, and deliver it to the goods to persons. Once again, we're talking sometimes a half a day or a day, a lot of paperwork, etc. With a modern system today, that's all eliminated. We can pull a system, we can get inventory and product and part to a customer in a very, very short order of time. So extreme cost savings for implementation of some system like this, as well as the ease of use. So big data, as we know it today, is probably a very important portion of the issue. We talked a moment ago about being able to share data across the globe, across the country, across the inter-company discussions. But we also have now big data. So now, once we understand what's in the inventory, it gives the operation, procurement people or the end user, the opportunity to be able to negotiate a little bit better from a big data perspective. If they have the data and they have the understanding and they have the knowledge, they can make a little bit better informed decision about what they want to spend for, what they want to buy, how they're going to automate their system as well. So big data is an extremely important piece of the direction we're trying to go from a material handling system. Additionally, the improvements in the picking system within a warehouse. I'm sure we've all talked to folks that have problems with getting their goods to their outbound. Once again, if it's a computerized system and we're able to go in and understand exactly where the inventory is, it's a very simple situation to be able to go and pull the inventory out of the system and deliver it. So there are many, many things that we can do today to help improve that specific kind of an issue, a pick-to-light system, any kind of a system that we can increase and improve productivity through the entire system. So as I kind of wrap up this, kind of what's the overall business direction, this is what we see based on the analysis and based on the input that we've had, kind of the direction the market wants to go and the market is heading in as well. So companies, as they start spending very large capital expenditure, they start looking at implementation costs of handling systems, and they try to compare that to what the growth in the business is going to be year over year. As we see Once again, as we talked about earlier, if you believe economists, they're saying fiscal or capital or calendar year, 2023 is going to be fairly flat. There's not going to be a lot of growth. There's not going to be a lot of expansion. So as you can see here, the GDP is recommending or estimating that the GDP will grow about 1.8% in 23. Pretty flat, pretty good start in the year, but I think it's going to get flatter. In 24, the recommendation right now from economists in the GDP, pretty flat. We don't see a lot of growth. I happen to be a little bit more optimistic based on information that maybe the opportunity will for the economy will grow just a little bit. So it does. Based on the data I've gotten, it does not account for inflation. So if we talk a little bit about what the direction of the market is, a little bit about where the market's at from a business standpoint for the next couple of years. Let's look a little bit about some of the solutions that are available. When we start talking to people about what direction we want to go, what direction they want to go, people always want to understand what's available in the market. What's the solution? What's the direction we want to go? So I want to talk just briefly about a couple of different styles of systems, and maybe talk a little bit about that. So if we talk about an ASRS or automated storage and retrieval system, as you know, from a warehouse perspective, as we're looking at how we can automate a material handling system, our analysis has been that the ASRS is the cornerstone of that business. The first thing that we have to do is understand, certainly what the product is, what's the throughput, what's the timing, what's the weight, how much space you have, and things like that. But a modern ASRS system is something that can dramatically improve the customer's ability to process product and move product through their system. So a typical ASRS system is specifically engineered and designed and supplied with some very specific coordinates. Once again, we talked about that. From our perspective in the business today, when we approach an ASRS system, we do it very open-mindedly. We don't start with a white piece of paper, but it pretty much starts with maybe just a little bit of gray on the paper. As we sit down from an engineering group in Charlotte, we have to look at specifically what the customer's needs are. What's their weight, what's their throughput, what's their time, how much space do they have, et cetera. So as we design an ASRS system, they're not totally one-off systems, but they're very, very specialized as we build them and design from there. Some of the pros about a system, if we looked at the pros and cons analysis, which I think is extremely important as we sit down with people and try to give them some knowledge about whether an ASRS system is for them, whether they can afford it, whether they want to expend the time and the energy. Some of the pros about the system, extremely high density. We can put a lot of stuff in a small space. Typically, we see around a 65 to 75% increase in warehouse space in a location that has had a legacy warehouse operation, and we've installed an ASRS system. We've seen between 65 and sometimes even more than that increase in operating space by installing an ASRS system. Some of the other pros, certainly reduced footprint, operational safety, and I think this is one of the areas that we really spend some time with when we're looking at ROI analysis is, when we go back and do some research on how safe that company is, and it's all available, one of the things we can talk a little bit about is the safety of a system. We eliminate some of the legacy warehouse management and warehouse capabilities, eliminate that with an automated system that virtually is no safety issues whatsoever, virtually accident-free. The system is fairly automated, doesn't have to move from there. Certainly the increase in accuracy, I think the increase in accuracy is once again an extremely important piece. The opportunity to improve understanding of the stock and the stock analysis and what kind of throughput it has. In our experience has been that most companies are very interested in a modernization system like this simply to help them understand what kind of accuracy they have, what kind of inventory they have. And certainly the productive increase, we talked a little bit about that a moment ago. I think that's extremely important as well. Now conversely to that, let's talk about some cons. There are some significant cons to the system and things that we all have to overcome. First and foremost is the initial cost. As we know, a modern ASRS system or material handling system is by far a capital expenditure. It's not something we can go in and hope they've got a couple $100,000 left over in the budget for this year. Historically, these systems will be long time engineered, long time manufactured, long time installed. So there's a lot of cost associated with the systems. The maintenance and flexibility, the variation in the operation, sometimes it takes a while for a company to understand how to be able to incorporate this into their maintenance methods. That we need to have some skilled technicians. One of the things that we recommend to our end users that invest in an ASRS system is to maybe take some of the legacy warehouse people and have an opportunity to do some retraining, to give them an opportunity to move into another type of position or another opportunity to get some training, more technical, etc. So as we see it, these are some of the pros and cons and maybe a little bit of the information about an ASRS system. So ASRS systems are basically broken down into three pieces. Let me just put them all up here. ASRS systems are basically broken down into three pieces. We have the uniload system in the market today, and it's pretty much universal. A uniload system is a system that brings in pallets worth of information or product and stores it. And it can be anything. It can be dog food to computer pieces, whatever. So the typical ASRS system, we can store. Hang on, let me get down here. So a uniload system that is a pallet-driven system, historically across the board, once again, we're trying to stay pretty agnostic. If we look at all the suppliers and manufacturers that build uniload systems, historically across the spectrum, about a 7,000 pound load capacity. There are a few instances and a few cases that they can go to a 15,000 pound capacity, but once again, generally the height is anywhere from 19 feet to 131 feet, very specific about where an ASRS system, uniload system could be, and a pretty good direction, a pretty good cross-section of environments that the system can work in. It can go all the way from a minus 22 degrees to certainly ambient of the system. And the speed obviously varies based on the throughput and the weight, etc. So, that's the atypical uniload system. We can either get them in single deep or double deep, whatever the case may be. The mini load system, as you see here in the middle, we talked earlier a little bit about high density, and as you can see by the indication or our photo of this system, extremely high density. And this is one of the places that we can see a significant input or a significant improvement in footprint. We can bring the system in, we can go pretty high depending on what the capability of the warehouse facility, but very, very high density. We can put a lot of stuff in a small space. Historically, in a minute load system, which is a tote system or a box system, typically the maximum weight is about 220 pounds. Again, we can be in a very varied environment from about a minus 13 degrees to ambient. So pretty broad spectrum, very fast, very high density, very storage. And then the last system is a unishuttle system. Unishuttle systems today, extremely high speed, The applications are generally designed for people that want specific sequencing of their system out of their storage area into an outbound either pallet or a goods to person or something like that. But very much sequence storage. The typical unishuttle today is a two-way transfer. In other words, we use the same shuttle to put away as we take out. The system can run up to about 490 feet per minute loaded. So once again, it's a very fast system from a delivery perspective. It gives us the opportunity to move product in and move product out in a very fast capability. So one of the other things that are extremely important on the market today is the transportation systems. Transportation systems generally mean AGVE. When we start talking about, AGV systems, autonomous guided vehicle systems. Extremely low maintenance, very good overhead cost, very easy to adopt and take a legacy warehouse system for moving material around within your system and adopt it into an AGV. Frankly, we see that the AGV market today is probably the most predominant market in the field today. The AGV systems are probably the most requested from us. As I've talked to people in the industry, that's the direction that most individual warehouses and individual companies are moving to, is to start with the AGV. It's our philosophy is let's start with the AGV and then let's take a look at what's next and what's next and what's next. If we can automate something that is costing them a lot of money and a lot of overhead and a lot of maintenance expense, let's get an AGV or a transportation system in there and then move to the next levels past that. So these are really, really easy to integrate into an SAP system or a warehouse management system. They're fairly seamless, for lack of better words, and easy to move from there. Now, once again, let's talk a little bit about pros and cons. If we talk specifically about some of the pros, which I always like to go first, dramatically reduces our labor costs. We have a lot of overhead for legacy warehouse systems. We're trying to reduce that overhead cost. It's easy to move around with an asset. I want to make sure I get a lot of the information here. The cost of the initial investment, once again, it's a capital expenditure investment. It's pretty expensive to get started. So here again, we have, basically three different kinds of systems that are available on the market today. We see the typical AGV system as you see here. There are rail-guided transportation systems. And historically I would go into this, but I really want to give you guys some time to have some discussion, and then the overhead transportation system. So from a transportation system in the market today, we see that these are kind of the three main cornerstones: AGVs, some kind of a rail-guided vehicle, and then the overhead system. So let's look at a couple of examples real quickly. I want to give you a couple of examples of customers we've interfaced with and tried to help out from a project and a product perspective from a material handling standpoint. JetBlue, one of our customers, came to us with an interesting challenge, as every customer comes with an interesting challenge. They were building a new 100,000 square foot building facility. They wanted to be able to easily access parts, critical parts within their building. I don't know if anybody's ever sat on the tarmac and waiting for a part to come for an airplane. It takes a while for that to happen. One of the JetBlue's things was they wanted that time frame to decrease substantially if they could. So they asked us to help them. They wanted an ASRS system that would dramatically reduce their small part damage. Once again, some of the parts that they use are very fragile. They wanted to try to eliminate some of that, that damage, and something that was very low maintenance, something that could move pretty quickly. So here's kind of what our solution was for the system. We put together and installed a single aisle mini load system. Now this particular system, they wanted 2 cranes on it. They wanted the single aisle system, but they wanted some redundancy. In case one of the cranes happened to be down for maintenance or for repair, they wanted to have a backup system, so that's what they put together. 62 bays, 40 levels, 9,600 parts. Now this particular company, because of the high density that we were talking about and the capability of being able to pull a product out from a special sequencing perspective, made all their totes into multiple SKUs. So even though we had 4,900 locations, as you can see here, they ended up with 47,000 individual SKUs and locations. So very, very happy with the implementation. We also have been very innovative in the wholesale food industry. Some of the challenges for them, once again, they wanted to eliminate the need for multiple conveyors. They wanted to be able to automate their inventory and move things quickly. They wanted to use a pick-to-light system. All these things were things that we helped engineer and design. So our solution, once again, was a multi-level storage system, 20 rows, 17 stations, 18 levels. We provided about 30 locations for about 30,000 cases. And give them an opportunity to lower their footprint. They were looking at a legacy warehouse expansion of many millions of dollars. With the implementation of this, they were able to lower their footprint and reuse some of that space as well. As you can see here, the results, very good results. They increased their throughput by 60%. Very, very happy with that. Guys, I had a small video here. I'm going to move past the video because I want to make sure that we have time to. So now I want to talk a little bit about how do we justify these systems. What do we do from an ROI perspective? You know, certainly the first question out of most people's mouth when we put together a system is, what's it going to cost me? How do I justify the cost of these systems? So if we look purely at the warehouse space reduction, that's a major portion of the cost reduction. And then the addition of additional storage locations, et cetera. These are some of the major areas that we can maximize the return on investment. The reallocation of the workspace, once again, we talked a little bit about that. I apologize, I'm moving kind of fast because I want to give you guys some opportunity if you have questions. So the energy cost is certainly an issue. We've talked a little bit about overall operating expense for overhead with a typical warehouse. With introducing a modern material handling system, the energy cost goes down. Once again, the picking efficiency is dramatically improved. And then certainly the labor cost, from a modern material handling system today, the labor systems are dramatically less. You know, we're seeing anywhere from a 40 to 60% reduction in labor as it applies to the system. So a significant reduction from a labor perspective as well. Enhanced warehouse productivity, repurposing workers, as we had talked a little bit about. I think that's an extremely important issue. As we're, you know, our intent, and I think all of our intent in the industry today, from a modernization of warehouse management system, is not to eliminate people, but to repurpose people, get people into technical business or technical systems that will utilize their capability and help retain workers and move things forward. Better inventory tracking, we talked about. So some final thoughts. Some of our final thoughts here, that we want to bring up is, here again, these systems are designed and built to help the end users manage and move their inventory. That's really the entire focus, the entire genesis of what we're doing. We don't have any other thing that we're trying to do with them. So that's a little bit of my discussion. I got about 6 minutes left. If there's any questions, by all means, please stop by our booth if you like. This is our booth location. If you're really bored and you can drop me an email, and I'm happy to get you engaged with anybody that we have. So please, if there's any way we can help you, we would love to do just that. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
So hi, just a general high-level question. Where do you see the technology going in terms of warehouse systems in the future? Because most of the system you talked about here, they are not necessarily new systems. So like lift and run system, pallet stackers, they are the same system that have been existed for quite some time. And here around, walking around, I can see a lot of like robotics. I can see 10 different types of robotic arms doing stuff. But I don't really see any new innovation in terms of warehouse management.
Today's discussion was a little bit more about what's in the market today and kind of what the market trends are. Absolutely, we're heavily engaged with robotic integration. We're heavily engaged with improved software integration. Today's discussion was pretty basic. The things, and by all means, if you have questions, come by. We'd love to spend some time with you and talk about what's on the horizon, what's coming up. What I really wanted to do today was to talk a little bit about what the market is today, what we see in the short term. I think the long term from material handling automation, without sounding corny, is very exciting. There's a lot of things that we're working on. There's a lot of things in the market today that is being put in place to help expand and grow. Many more robotics and automation that's tied into it. We're incorporating robotics more and more into our solutions. So I think there's a lot of innovation that is yet to come. 2 years from now, when I come and have this conversation again, if they're nice enough to let me come, we can talk about where we are then and maybe what some of the things are into the future. So.
Hello.
Anyone else?
Yeah, sorry. Any other questions? Anyone?
Okay.
Well, how about a round of applause for Scott Maddock from Murata Machinery.
Thank you.
Inc.
Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure, you guys.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming at the end of the day, guys. I know it. I give you back 3 minutes here, so hope your feet's better and you can get out of here before the end of the day. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Scott.